Yo, and all these problems and adversity on the street and people getting shot for what? Colors? We gotta bring it to them. We gotta show them that this is everybody's turf.
The first time I met Elizabeth was actually my best friend was dating her sister.
My sister had invited me to go to this New Year's Eve party. I guess she felt sorry for me because I was home alone.
I was 15 and my parents actually let me go out and be hanging out with my friends at that time of day, that time of night.
A couple years until we started getting serious, until I became his girlfriend.
We were out at the lake and, you know, we were enjoying the night, summer night.
And we were talking about the universe and the stars. We were just looking up at the stars and
I pointed out to a star and I said, you know that star existed like 10 million years ago and it's only reaching us now because of the speed of light and, you know, going on and on and on. And I thought that was romantic, you know. I thought that was romantic.
That was the cement when we were having that conversation about the stars and just how small and tiny we are. That was it. That was the moment for us.
Riding through the hood like we some real G's, but I'm not a gangster, never fronted like one. It ain't new to us, you could be another victim.
When we first moved to Pilsen, we were in our early 20s. Jeff was an artist and he wanted to get into the neighborhood because of that history that Pilsen had already had. And it seemed as though there was a renaissance back then. So it felt very unified. It felt incredible, electric. We were in the right place at the right time. He was born July 24th, 1990, at Rush Presbyterian Hospital. It wasn't until I brought him home that I really bonded with him. You know, like, as soon as he came, I felt like, wow, I'm this young teenage girl and I have a baby, and what am I gonna do? You know, I was more scared for us in the beginning, you know, but that all went away when I brought him home.
I remember I walked up to the crib and I saw him and he smiled at me. You know, he looked up and he smiled at me. And I picked him up and I held him and I said, you know, I'm your father. And he smiled at me and I hugged him and I was struggling to figure out how to hold him, and we connected then. I knew from that moment that my life was not going to be the same. It was going to be better. He came to me in a time in my life when I was making the transition from being on the streets to becoming the kind of person I wanted to be. And so his presence gave me purpose. I used to call him my greatest work of art because I put everything into him. I put everything into him.
This family was just a family of constant teaching, constant learning, constant sharing. Everything was oratory.
This wasn't your traditional family as far as where Mom stayed home. It was wherever Jeff was, there was Lisa there with her young son, Jeff. And if it was painting a mural on the side of a building, you would see there Lisa with her stroller and having Jeff Jr. So being exposed to what his father did at an early age, obviously, you know, carried on to him, and it's in his genes and his traits that this is what his destiny was to be, you know, an artist.
It seemed as though he had to find his niche on his own.
J-Def, some friends would call him, a moniker for an aspiring MC. I met him once after reading poems to a lunchroom of students at Perspective's charter school in the South Loop. After I was finished, I asked if anyone would like to read some of their own work. There was a small rumble at one table. Friends of the humble and sweet J-Def pushed him to the forefront. He reluctantly stood, walked to the front of the lunchroom in front of me, asked for a beat, and proceeded to drop rhymes about his neighborhood, his love for hip-hop, his life. J-Def got a little known in his 19 years.
Everything that he wrote, everything that, you know, came out in his verses was just real. You know, he wouldn't talk about, you know, I got money, I got girls, I got this, I got that. Like, you know, he didn't have any of those things. You know, so he talked about what he didn't have. You know, he talked about what he did have, like his friends, you know, family, you know, his culture. You know, he would talk about, you know, things that would make him proud and would make every other Latino proud.
For me, I looked up to J-Def as a role model in an artist way, because J-Def was the hottest thing on the block right now. Like, he was like the one that really got me to the music.
From the shy city, impotent cats can really follow me. From the beats to the streets, son, you might be another victim.
Gang violence has definitely escalated. We're not just talking about kids fighting after school now. We're talking about kids fighting to kill.
I remember one time Jeff came to my house and I pulled out some brass knuckles and I was being messed with by some gangs in the parks. And I pulled out the brass knuckles and I showed him. I said, you know, let's go jump on him. And he was the first guy to really tell me it's not worth it.
The gangs were always here. They were always here, but we were so far removed from them. I didn't feel any danger. They didn't impact my life in any way.
You would see somebody walking down the street who we knew was a gangbanger and say, well, why do you think they're doing that? And he would say, they got something to prove. And those are the ones that you have to look out for. Those are the ones that are most dangerous.
If you have anger, you know, don't shoot a gun, go make a beat, you know? If you know, you got problems with somebody, go on your tables and just start scratching or start mixing. You know, if you got a problem, anything, we just resolve it in an artistic way.
Where there's not any opportunities, where there's poverty, we have the most violence. And at the same time, what makes this dynamic situation in Pilsen is that we're surrounded by creativity. You know, it's almost as creativity and violence are going hand in hand. And that's the sad part. You know, we wanted Jeff to grow up in this neighborhood. We didn't want to move him around because we didn't want him to re-experience having to prove himself of who he wasn't. That he wasn't running around with this gang or that gang. We wanted him to be in as stable environment as possible. And from him walking from school to the house, he would pass through 2 or 3 different territories, and always in peace. Everybody recognized that he was not a detriment to their own safety. He was a peaceful person, and so they would let him pass. Friday, July 24th was Jeff's 19th birthday. He wasn't a child anymore, so there was, you know, cakes were not necessary. So we drove over to one of his favorite pizza spots, and Jeff was sitting in the back seat. You know, he's sitting down and he's got this warm pizza on his lap, and you know, he's got some money in his pocket, and you know, we're playing some good music, and he knows he's gonna have a good night, and he just blurts out, you know, the universe unfolds as it should. And it was unfolding as it should. You know, we were all happy. And we didn't think twice to ask what it meant, because we all knew what it meant. We all knew what it meant. It was living our life in a good way. The simplest things that made him happy. And as we were on the road, he asked if I could drop him off at the barbershop, you know, his favorite barbershop. He closed the door and he entered the barbershop, and I drove off.
When he left, I didn't even really say goodbye. I don't even recall seeing his face. I do remember distinctly us crossing paths.
I heard like a really agitated knock on my doors. And he kept just saying, he got shot, man, he got shot. He was like, just run, bro, run, 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 run. I mean, it just seemed impossible that, You know, an hour ago, everything was right in the world.
The young man who shot Jeff was seeking revenge in the wrong place. The white van he chose that afternoon was not full of his father's assassins, just two young men on their way for a slice. A case of mistaken identity.
A few minutes later, the ambulance came, and they opened the door, and he got himself out. He was still conscious, and he pulled himself up onto the stretcher.
I ran into the crime scene, and the police ran up to me, and, you know, they didn't know who I was, and I just said, "I'm looking for my son, I'm looking for my son." I could hear people in the crowd saying, you know, he wasn't a gangbanger, he was an artist, he was a hip-hop artist, he was a rapper. You know, I could hear this, and it just seemed so surreal to me. And the only thing that I thought about was, oh my God, Elizabeth has no idea what's happening right now.
And I get a call from Jeff Sr., and he asked me where I was. I knew something was wrong.
She happened to be 2 blocks away.
I had seen the crime scene. I walked right past it. Actually, I was thinking, why are all these people around?
As I drove up, I saw her standing on the corner, and I swung the door open, and she climbed in, and I told her that it was Jeff.
So when he told me that, I realized that that was our son. That had everything to do with me. And yet I just walked right by.
J-Def got a little known in his 19 years, and young writers around the city hit me up on Facebook to ask if I had heard what had happened.
I was shot a text message saying that you heard what happened to Jeff. And at first, honestly, I didn't believe it, because someone like Jeff, nobody would think he would be the one to get shot.
I didn't believe it. I didn't want to. I mean, I had just talked to him not even 2 hours before.
It just kind of took my breath away. I just went like, ah.
It was hard. I mean, even though I didn't know it was Jeff at the moment, like I said, as a mother, to see a young man be shot in the head, I mean, it was hard.
They told me that I should immediately go to Stroger Hospital and get there quick.
When we got to the hospital, it was morbidly quiet, so I knew that it was serious. I knew that it was really bad.
When I was able to go back into the emergency room, they led me to the bed, and it was there that I saw that it was him. And he was really, really, really hurt.
And when I saw him, it was just shock, utter shock. It was horrible to see him like that.
You know, they told us that in so many words that it was just too much. There was no way that he was going to make it.
It was our worst nightmare. We were so opposite of that life. Like, we never thought that anything like this could ever happen to us.
And I remember speaking to him. You know, I remember telling him that I still had to look after him, even in those final time. I told him that the body dies, but that the spirit lasts forever. And it was almost as if I was telling myself that.
And I broke down. And I remember a stranger, a total stranger, just coming up to me and hugging me.
You know, such strength from, you know, my skinny little was getting a little sun. His injuries started to get worse, and they worked on him for a bit, and you know, by 8:20 p.m. he was pronounced dead.
I thought that he was gonna make it.
I'm living a life I never thought I'd be living. It's as though my heart and soul has been ripped from me.
Jeff and I just went into seclusion. We could not come back here. We were in hell. We wanted to end our lives. We couldn't imagine living without him. Couldn't imagine it. There was no way. So we made a pact that we would just end it. We knew we had to come back home, so we came back home. And the first thing I saw, the first evidence of the impact that losing Jeff Jr. made was when I saw Rest in Peace J-Def. And I saw that and I broke down because I didn't think that anyone knew or cared enough. I had no clue the impact he made on this community. And immediately after that, our doors became floodgates. And it was nonstop. It was nonstop all day for days. And that was incredible. That changed our minds. That changed our plans. We had different plans. I know that it was Junior. I know that he was speaking to me and saying, no, that's not the mother I know.
This is a eulogy for Jeff Maldonado Jr., J-Def, whose community came out this past Sunday in the soup of 90-degree August and ended up at the steps of Dvorak Park, spilled onto Cullerton, a rally of people holding signs who looked like what Pilsen has become. Veterans and abuelas, artists and J-Def's homies, young Latinos who hip-hop and skate, a street biker gang of poets, a troupe of Aztec dancers, punk anarchist white kids and punk anarchist Mexican kids, and across the street, old modest row homes with old workers on the porch who used to work in the factories of old. The rally raised questions with difficult and important answers life depends on.
It's quiet. It's way too quiet. But I think of him constantly. I mean, almost every other second of the day, he's still with me, but it's that physical, it's that connection, that physical connection that I'm missing.
Waking up every morning is hard. Think about him constantly. He's always on my mind. Everything revolves around him, as it always did. We were always worried about him. We were always on him. We lived for him, and we still do. This is Jeff's closet. All his clothes. These are the pants that he was wearing that day. And I decided that I would like to use this in a ofrenda for next year's Day of the Dead ceremony.
Why does this happen? The priest wondered. How can we stop it? The mothers cried. Where is the alderman? The activists shouted. Some thought gangbangers to blame. Some said police. Some said the system. Some said kids and gangs are our kids too. This is a eulogy for Jeff Maldonado Jr., J-Def, whose identity has been mistaken before.
Right on the corner, there's an ofrenda, an altar in memory of Jeff. People visit it every day. They visit every day. There's ladies in the neighborhood that come and they pray at night. His friends, I see them all the time. I'm assuming it's his friends because they come and they drop flowers and they're there for a while. And it's every day.
If you were to tally up the number of all of the cases that I've worked with in the last few years, that would be probably over 1,000 children, young adults, innocent victims due to gang violence. There are times that I'm overwhelmed, that I don't want to do it anymore. There is so much pain when a parent loses a child.
Why must time fly by so fast? Today is history, it'll be tomorrow's past. I don't know if tomorrow I'll be thought of my artist or my product.
When you listen to his music, that's what it's all about. So there's a lot of really great things to live for. What also helped us through this worst time ever in our lives was the fact that so many people came and supported us. Pilsen.
This is a eulogy for Jeff Maldonado Jr., whose community was in the streets this past Sunday, mourning a young artist sent away too soon, wondering when their identities will stop being taken and overtaken and mistaken in the streets in the barrio and in the streets in the hood. That is, everywhere.
I did raise this extraordinary person who touched so many people and who gave so much of himself. And seeing that and knowing that gives me strength.
I think his friend Freddie had said it best. He said that even though Jeff is not here, he's out there more than ever. And so we're very, very lucky to have lived the life with Jeff for those 19 years and a day. Yeah.
We got Apollo on the track, Ghetto Division Productions. It's your boy Hayes.
Here is Jeff Jr.'s urn that we brought back home. We wouldn't have had it any other way. There was no question. It says, in loving memory of Jeff Abby Maldonado Jr., the universe unfolds as it should. It's not about death, and it's not about a life ending. It's about a life reborn. The spirit never dies.
I think that he may have lived a fuller life than many of us do in his short time. In some ways, it could be a perfect life.
Trying to kick us off the streets, and that's the reason why we hating on police. We need to work hard to make the world better. Stop killing each other and start coming together. But the things you want in life, like the cause of the bling, got you blinded by the fact that it's only a dream. Yeah, yeah. What up? J-Def, Bruce City, y'all through Sabe. Yeah. You know what I mean? Ha. It's Shot City, man. Underground.
What I gotta do, what I gotta say. Tell me, how can I make this world a better place? Even though he's gone, I still can see his face. Lord, help me, I know he's he's in a better place.
Hey yo, I know he's in a better place. Looking down, I just smile when I see his face. He will live on through his art and his creation. Another young soul claimed in this crazy nation. Who you mistaken? What it takes for y'all to stop the slayings? Another case as they prosecute the perpetrator. Who else we gotta sacrifice just for this to wake us? It ain't a neighborhood to me until you know your neighbors. When there's blood in the soil, how we grow seeds. There's more children dying in the street than overseas. So it seems the younger generations fall. Pay attention, yo, it's painted all on the walls. Picket signs with pickup lines, don't shoot. Headlines, a kid dies, you know the scoop. It's sad times, you hear the lies, you know the truth. I'm so sick of seeing the innocent die. I'm crying out, tell me what I gotta do.
Picking up a gun is easy, but what's hard is to change the lifestyle that enables you to pick up that gun in the first place.
Even though he's gone, I still can see his face. Lord help me, I know he's in a better place.
Hey yo, I picture you somewhere above it all, alive as you ever been. I hope you had a ball. You were so gifted, you meant a lot to us all. Your words are prolific cause you uplift and evolve. I can never understand how people could be so rotten. To me it don't make sense, they gotta be psychotic. But you will be missed and you will never be forgotten. To bring means to an end, we gotta be methodic. Is it the poison, why the streets so toxic? Is it the voices that put our boys in them boxes? Is it the choices, could it be lack of options? I don't know the source, what I do know is logic. That everybody that you was there for loves you. And everybody that you ever cared for loves you. I just wish we could have made a difference sooner. Rest in peace, Jeff Maldonado Jr. We love you, boy.
What I gotta do, what I gotta say. Tell me how can I make this world a better place? Even though he's gone, I still can see him.